So you're going to Taekwondo school. You love it. You're there 6 days a week. And then kind of how does that progress to the next thing?
So I had wrestled competitively. Okay. In school, and before the Taekwondo.
Okay.
But no one back then, like in the 60s and 70s, you didn't think of wrestling as a base for MMA. Right. There was no. So now we know like solid wrestlers have an easier time transitioning to MMA.
Yeah.
But this is how many years ago? I'm not good at math. Like 30, 40. Right. So I never thought that impact, that collision that you have, that force on force that you would get in wrestling applied to self-defense, because most self-defense, conventional self-defense, is taught almost in a sparring modality where he does this and you do this and the counter is this and you're creating space, and when he comes at you, you move, and you're like, there was all these, complex orientations. Jump ahead 37 years, we have a motto in our, we do seminars all over the world now, right? And it's a system that is, you use the word renegade, or, what's the name of the podcast, right? Yeah. So I'm the renegade in that, like, I believe self-defense should be taught like CPR in a day. Yeah. That you learn CPR in first aid in a 4 or 6 hour clinic taught by not even the best in the world, just a paramedic, a local paramedic, a firefighter who just wants you to be safer. And you have the skills to save somebody's life. You understand the pre-contact cues. You understand some verbal commands. Call 911. You're doing something, and you're applying a tourniquet. You're doing CPR, whatever it is. You're not a physician. You're not a brain surgeon. You're not a heart doctor, right? And so over a course of teaching of 37 years, instead of like having my system get more complex and more loaded and more, we've got 4,000 techniques.
Yeah.
It was, oh no, this year we've got 5,000 techniques. Right. Look how good this is.
Trying to go the opposite way.
It was really realizing what, this human weapon protocol of startle, flinch, convert, push away danger, understanding the physiology and physics of human movement under duress, and then going, what do people really need? People need to understand situational awareness, how to recognize a fear spike and act on it. So that's psychology. And then blend that together. And when I put that course together, and then that took me 20 years to have that realization. So I described it in 20 seconds, but that was 20 years of work, where when I put that together, Jay, it was a day-long course. You could be safer in a day. Now, you're not a black belt. You can't go in the octagon. You can't box a boxer. You can't even grapple with like somebody who's been grappling for 6 months. And this is the mistake of the martial arts world of looking on. Imagine a doctor coming to a one-day CPR course and laughing at everybody and mocking them.
With that analogy, I've never heard that analogy. Is amazing.
It's cool, eh?
Yeah, so cool.
I'm glad you get it. Yeah. So we call it Safer today. It's the Be Your Own Bodyguard course. Yeah. Because we say, hey, listen, like, you're a VIP, right? I mean, you've got a business, you've got family, you got dreams, you got goals. But I didn't notice when I came in here, I didn't see any bodyguards at your door. And I didn't see any bodyguards in like tasting your coffee first to make sure someone wasn't poisoning you. Right. So if something were to happen to you, what would happen to all of your goals and dreams and your relationships? That would suck. Mm-hmm. And so this is like maybe almost a 30-year-old epiphany that I had, where I always was interviewing victims of violence. Mm-hmm. I gravitated towards that. So I'd go, Jay, tell me about that fight you had. And while you were embellishing this or you were spending too much time with the guilt of not doing this or that. And I'm obviously, I'm giving a cartoony hypothetical. Yeah. I was like reading body language and peeling this onion where I go, and then what happened? Then what happened? And I would find out that what I discovered was that there was common thought / movement patterns of victors and common / movement patterns of victims. It had nothing to do with gender. It had nothing to do with where they were in the world, like where they lived. It had nothing to do with whether they were trained or untrained. In fact, isn't that cool? In fact, we have a motto or a maxim from our system where we say, it's not what you believe, it's what we see. It's not what you believe, it's what we see. And what that means is that, if I had, if during this podcast we had every martial arts stylist in the other room at this location, and one by one they came in, and I was just sitting here, they didn't know who I was. And you said, hey, do you believe that your training is preparing you for self-defense? What do you think they would all say?
I would assume they would say yes.
Yeah, they would all say yeah. They would all say yeah. Because nobody would do it. Because the reason most people get into some sort of martial art is for self-defense.
Yes.
So nobody unless you're specifically doing it because, hey, I want to win the musical kata competition. I want to learn this art for the culture. But if you talk to most people, they believe, and if you look at every Yellow Pages ad, I don't even know, do the Yellow Pages still exist?
I don't know.
I just dated myself. It's like a bunch of your younger listeners are going,
what?
Googling Yellow Pages. What is that? People believe that. And here's the thing is, I'm a martial artist. I love martial arts. I love movement. But I realized at some point, because of a bunch of fights that I got into growing up, that's
what I want to go back to. I want to ask you, was there certain aha moments or anything like that? So you're doing Taekwondo, and then, how far up did you go?
Yeah. So I never became Grand Poobah. I was always interested in my personal development. I didn't chase the belts. But did
you get in any fights that were like,
oh yes,
this isn't really serving me, I'm not prepared for this.
So here's one shift that happened. I must have been 16 because I ended up driving to this boxing club. So I was about 15 and a half and messing around with some kids at school, teacher gone out of the classroom, and there was the class, the guy that everyone picked on. Mm-hmm. But he would engage people too, right? So he wasn't like the helpless victim. He was obnoxious too, but he was the guy with the thick glasses with the tape, but he was a verbal bully that provoked physical bully. So this starts to escalate. And I'm standing, and the whole class is laughing. There's like 28 kids, and everyone's laughing at this, and I'm laughing. And I happen to be standing near, like right beside the stuff. And one of the guys does, that thing where you get on all fours behind somebody and you push him and he falls over.
Yep.
Somebody does that to him. But when he falls over, like I happen to be standing right beside the guy that tripped him up, and he thought it was me. So he, like, in a flash of rage, he like shoved me and came at me. And I, had my hands up, and here's the interesting thing, because the protocol for what we now call human weapon system, analysis, how I reverse engineered everything, is you get outside 90, your fingers are splayed, and this hand position, what that does is it preps you for a stronger, faster startle flinch when we engage, and there's tons of videos online where I'm sharing this, the muscle recruitment of fingers splayed, the position of getting in from outside 90, this is inside 90, this is 90, to outside 90. Getting outside 90, it's a frame from a geometric point of view. It's the strongest frame you can get. So you could take one of your football player buddies, one of your, strongman guys, if you hit outside 90, they're not going to be able to bear hug you and crush you. So it creates this space inside the tornado, as a metaphor,
right,
where you can scream for help, headbutt, eye gouge, knee, elbow. You got to own that inner space. Anyways, I don't know any of this shit when I'm 15, right?
Yeah.
Right. So he comes at me. His name was Lance. I just remembered his name. I love when you have this thing where you go, oh shit, his name was Lance.
Yeah.
And Lance comes at me and I'm like, whoa, dude, it wasn't me. And he's like going berserk now because he got embarrassed and it was physical. And he comes at me and I move, and it was one of these behavioral things where he goes to attack me, and I run to the back of the class, like, dude, like I'm doing like this thing, and he's standing there, and I see him freaking out, and I'm doing what we now call nonviolent posture, fingers splayed outside 90, like the whole system. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, Lance, calm down, take it easy. And I'm trying to verbally diffuse it so we have a moral, ethical foundation now, all these years later. But I don't know what I'm doing. It was just very intuitive at the time.
Yeah.
And the distance we were at, Jay, I heard in my mind, you know, the athlete coach going, he's too close to kick. He's too close to kick. Because I'd been doing Taekwondo for like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
He's too close to kick. He was too far, a little bit too far to knee. He was in that space where, and I had my back to the wall. So I couldn't step back and do a round kick or do some Taekwondo toolbox thing, right? So, and there's desks all around, and I'm trying to verbally, and I remember my instructor at that week saying, hey, if I catch any of you, and I love Taekwondo, I love my instructor, I love going. It was, again, my moving meditation. I remember my instructor saying, if I catch any of you causing any trouble, starting any fights, fighting in the street, and it's not self-defense, you're out of the school.
Wow.
And I was 15, like that had an impact on me.
Sure.
So I'm like getting ready to, like, I'm thinking, okay, I'll do this. And then I'm going, he's too close to kick. Shit, what do I do? And then I hear my instructor, Alex, saying, if I catch any of you, and I'm going, I kind of been laughing and provoking this. I need to diffuse this. I can't fight. So now I've got moral, ethical, and I'm in this position. And I see the carotids in his neck pumping up.
Yeah.
And I intuitively know we're going to fight.
Yeah.
And he says, he gets closer and he shoves me again. And he goes, come on, man, I'll fuck you up. And all of a sudden, I realize, here we go. And he says, you fucking pussy, I'll let you have the first punch. And I hit him on the letter U of the word punch. You know, I didn't even let him finish the word punch. But I was standing like this, and I just went wham, and I threw like a shitty lead hand punch. And in Taekwondo, you've got a reverse punch and a back fist. Back in the day, back in, you know, the early 70s. Yeah. So I hit him with an improvised jab, which made him reel back. He lost his footing, but he came right back with like a John Wayne haymaker. And what I did is I went start a flinch. My hands came out to protect my head, and I pushed away the danger. And both his hands went careening around and hit my forearm. And his head ended up right here. Now, I had wrestled. Mm-hmm. I grabbed him by the hair, and I did a hip throw.
Okay.
And I hip threw him on the, the surround. What is the floor? And linoleum floor, right? Yeah. I was going to say ceramic. And then, like, you know, and on the special precious metal floor, on a linoleum floor, which stunned him. And then he was down right beside me, and like this, it was almost like this killer was unleashed in me. That I'd been this nice guy for years trying to avoid stuff, and I went from like 0 to 110, hair on fire. But I was cognizant of what I was doing, but I was like, I was right on the edge. And I grabbed him by the hair again, and I whipped him into 2 desks. He's on the ground, stunned. And I pointed at him in a front stance, like in a, martial arty side stance. I pointed at him. I said, if you get up, I'll fucking kill you. And he just sat there, and it was over.
Wow.
And my takeaway from that was, holy shit, what happened? Wicked adrenaline dump. But I'm 15, testosterone. I was trying to be as cerebral and introspective as possible. But my big takeaway from that was, I don't know how to punch. So there's no Google back then. I was about to say I Googled boxing. There's no Google back then. I went in the yellow pages. Yeah. Google yellow pages, guys, if you're listening to this, right? And I found a boxing gym, and I was just getting my license at 16, and I started taking boxing.
Okay.
And again, how many years before MMA and UFC is this, right?
Yeah.
So I had this wrestling, but it didn't even occur to me at that time that everything I did, from a nonviolent posture, verbal de-escalation, startle, flinch, convert. We say SPEAR is a bridge to your next move. The SPEAR system is the system I developed. So SPEAR stands for spontaneous protection, enabling accelerated response. It's an acronym. And what it means, spontaneous protection is just startle, flinch. So if I were talking and I fucking lunged across the table, you wouldn't punch me or elbow me. Your hands would come up. Right, and cover your face. Just like when someone goes through a windshield in a car accident. There's lots of scare videos on the internet now, and if you watch, like there was one that was a good one of somebody pretending that he had a baseball glove, and he went into public areas, and he'd go, look out, and he'd bump into people, and he'd just have the glove up, and everyone would do this, like everyone would cover their heads. You see baseball pictures, like ball flies into the stands, and people are so what I did is I reverse engineered an entire personal safety system around the startle flinch. And why that's important for you and everyone listening to this is because your physiology is the only thing that you carry with you always. It's how cavemen fought. That's how old this mechanism is, the physiology and the physics and the psychology of it. And so,
Tony, after that fight, when you started taking boxing, were you disillusioned with martial arts a bit? And did you stop martial arts, or did you say, let me add this into the repertoire?
Not at all. I looked at it literally as you're an East Coaster, so you understand snow tires, right? So when it snowed and you were lazy about getting snow tires, you didn't throw away your car. You went, damn it, I do need chains, or I do need snow tires. I looked at it like that. I looked at it as I was missing snow tires. I was missing boxing. It was probably not until 13 years later, around 1987, 1989, that I started thinking, and again, my expression of this is much more succinct right now, where I tell people, hey, be careful what you practice. You might get really good at the wrong thing. What is your motivation? And you look at that like one day I'll write the article, cheering is in coaching, because most coaches don't know how to coach. They know how to cheer. Come on, man, you got this. Come on, pick it. And, faster, heavier, a real coach. And I define that, and because I don't want to insult, because I know a lot of coaches listen to your show. I don't want to insult people. I overthink shit. And I think that's good for the people that benefit from it. It's probably bad for me because it slows down things that I want to do, right? So what I did is I created this awareness that we all need to have that goes like this: technician, trainer, coach, technician, trainer, coach. You may start a gym or have clients and you call yourself coach and they call you coach, but you're really a technician. You're like, fix your feet, fix your hands, fix your back. Your back's not, hey, you're curving here. I got a little dip here. Hey, your head's in the wrong position. I need your eyes here. That's technician. That's like pointing out like things. And is there value to that? Of course. Technique is, like, at the end of the day, technique is everything. In a extremely violent confrontation, technique is nothing. And it's a provocative statement. I go, don't confuse technical with tactical. Don't confuse technical with tactical. And so, if you need to jump over something to get away from like a gang that's chasing you, don't be worried what your pull-up looks like if you got to jump over the fence. Don't be worried. So if you stop to think about too much of the technique, you might slow down what's happening in the scenario. Same thing with shooting. Same thing with a knife fight. Same thing with it. And the most dangerous bad guys aren't technical. And so the evidence is clear that technique isn't needed to win a fight. But this is a whole other podcast, maybe. At the time, going back to, my snow tire metaphor, that I didn't look at martial arts as well, I should stop martial arts and just, I didn't know what path I was on. That change happened. So what I started doing is, I began teaching when I was 17. That was 1977. I was working for my father. He was in the clothing industry. I was making $4.25 an hour. I was minimum wage at the time, I think.
And what specifically were you doing?
Sweeping the factory, unpacking boxes. The name of his company was Blauer International. And when he said, hey, you don't have a job, you're not in school anymore, time to get to work, why don't you come to the company? Like, I'm thinking, Blauer International, I wonder what my office will look like, how big will my window be? Yeah. So, and literally I got there, and of course I grew up with the entire staff. Like, everybody knew me because it was my dad's company. I was going there since I was a baby. So I knew everybody. So I was there at breakfast, and my dad says, hey, Tony's joining the company. He's going to come on. And we're there, and he had like 10 employees, the accountant and the sales managers and the other shippers and stuff like that. And he looks at me in front of everybody and says, Tony, well, you might as well get started. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I've got on like a casual shirt and dress pants. Uh-huh. And he says, you see that broom over there? Like, right in front of everybody. And I always resented him for this, because he could have said to me, I was living with him at the time, he could have said to me, just wear shitty clothes because you're starting at the bottom.
Right.
He let me put on something nice. And he did this in front of everybody because that's what that generation did. Yep. Like, he did what his dad did to him. And he actually said that, to me. And he, like, while everyone was still seated, I was sweeping. And so I did it. I do what I have to do, like you're a fighter. And so I'm sweeping the place, but I'm going like, fuck, that wasn't cool, man. Like, right. And I'm doing a good job sweeping because that's the Zen thing to do. And I was doing it. And what ended up happening is, like, I became friends with better friends with the shippers, but I was still infatuated with martial arts and training. So every day after work, we'd spar, we'd work out, we would do some stuff. And because I was, and this is just the way things are. If you're better than somebody, you become their teacher, whether you want to or not. Right. So it's cool telling all these stories, man, because I haven't talked about it in years.
I love it.
So
while you were sweeping, were you thinking in the back of your head, I want to make a career and make money teaching fighting and whatnot at that point?
I probably, but I think I'd forgotten about it.
Okay.
Not forgotten about it. It was like, it was like one of those things, like a to-do list, like at some point in my life. But right now,
gotcha.
This is where I was. And so, and it's cool telling all these stories because I haven't told these in so long, and the names are coming back to me. So I'm having all these flashbacks. It's kind of neat. So Bobby was the head shipper, and Bobby was like a guy who grew up in a really shitty part of Montreal. He had hundreds of like street altercations, not because he was a dick. He just grew up in a place where, if you went to the store to get bread for your mother, someone was going to try and steal it from you. It was just a really shitty part of town. And he was, I was like 17, he was 27. So there's a big difference in man strength, and he had a kid, and he was just an adult. And I started teaching him, and it did a lot for me because I was working with a man. So when we'd spar and he'd punch me in the face, I felt a man punching me in the face, right? And, so I had to acclimate to that really quickly. But I knew so much more because I had been training in boxing and in Taekwondo, and I was a voracious reader. I already had a martial art book collection, looking at all sorts of shit and, studying things. And here's the thing, as I come back to, like, you asked me when I was like 6 or 7 years old, why was I afraid? I could pick up anything. Almost like, do you have any friends that were natural musicians? They could pick up a guitar or piano. I was like that with martial arts.
Okay.
I could, I went to a Wing Chun school in Chinatown, did some classes. The next thing I know, I'm doing like Chi Sao and Fox Sao and Bong Sao. I could pick up the shit, and my hands could like do the movements. And I was like, and I just understood it. And I gave this analogy because because I did play guitar, and I wasn't good at theory, but I had a little studio in my place, and I'd write songs, but I didn't know how to play bass, and I didn't know how to drum, but I had a electronic drum machine, and I would program shit to back my songs, and I'd play bass, and I would
music something that came naturally to you. You just picked it right up.
Most people think I was sucked, but I would have fun.
Yeah.
I didn't try to release anything, but I would have fun. I played in a couple of bands. More the point I'm trying to make is more of a connection to this martial arts thing, is that I understand musicality. Mm-hmm. I wasn't good at the theory. I didn't like the theory.
Gotcha.
And so I just seem to understand something about the architecture of violence and movement as it relates to that. I didn't know why I knew it. And I would tell it to people. I go, I don't know why I know that, but I don't think that's going to work. Let's do this. And some people will go, well, who are you? Blah, blah, and they'd leave. And then, and I'll share some stories that are like the way I handled them are they're still interesting to me. I go, why would I say that to, I remember I was at this camp where they had all these well-known martial artists, and I was a guest instructor, and they had 6 or 7, famous, and these names may mean nothing to people, but Joe Louis, not the boxer, but Joe Louis, the martial artist, Bill Wallace, and a bunch of these famous people. And I was at this camp up in New York, and I'd done the seminar, and after my seminar, my table was packed, and the table beside me, this guy, I'm not going to mention his name in case he happens to listen to that. Fuck it, Bob. He's an Aikido guy, and he's standing there in his table, no one's at his table, but everyone's at my table. And I would teach, I would show up, I showed up at your place today, t-shirt, shorts, and I would teach where everyone else is in a karate gi or kung fu gi or whatever. And I was always just, when I started getting on the road, I would just say, hey, I'm just going to teach you life extension insurance, how to avoid stuff, how to verbally diffuse stuff. In 1986, I filmed a bunch of videos for Panther Productions, they were the guys that broke the industry, the martial art industry in teaching videos. And so back in the mid 80s, the first video I did was called Cerebral Self-Defense, The Mental Edge. And my insight, even back in the 80s, was the mind navigates the body. It doesn't matter what you think you're going to do. If you're afraid, look at my shirt.
Yeah.
Right.
Fuck fear.
Right.
No, it's crazy that you had that insight. Did you study a lot of psychology and human relations and the science of people? Were you
zero?
It's crazy that you just had that intuition.
Yeah. So even one of my students, as word got around that something different was happening at this guy's place, one of my students was the head of psychiatry at the Montreal General Hospital. It was we had 2 big this is a world-renowned hospital, and he was fascinated with some of the verbal defuse, the devalue principle, de-escalation strategies, how to manage fear. I would do these rants. I was the Dennis Miller of self-defense, right? Does anyone know who Dennis Miller is still?
You crazy that you mentioned Dennis Miller, because with a bunch of your metaphors and analogies, I almost said you're like Dennis Miller here.
Yeah.
Hey guys, sorry to cut in the conversation here. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I just wanted to take a second to talk to you about Athletic Greens. It's much more than just another greens product. It is the most complete whole food supplement available. It's got 75 ingredients that work together to help with 11 different areas of health. In one instantly mixing delicious packet of Athletic Greens, you get a multivitamin, a multi-mineral, antioxidant blend, support for blood sugar levels in the normal range, a green superfood blend, adaptogen and hormone support, neural support formula, detox and liver support. And the great thing about it is there are no compromises whatsoever when it comes to Athletic Greens. No harmful chemicals, artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, artificial sweeteners. There's no added sugar. There's no GMOs, herbicides, pesticides, and any of the common allergies like wheat, dairy, gluten, corn, lactose, sucrose, dextrose, egg, yeast, peanuts, or even animal products. In other words, Athletic Greens is suitable for almost anyone. Go to athleticgreens.com/JAY to claim your special offer as a listener of this podcast. That's athleticgreens.com/J and get yours today.
And so what I'm talking about there is like if one guy's a jiu-jitsu guy and one guy's an asshole, and the jiu-jitsu guy's going, hey man, I want to fight. Because there's one that went viral in a basketball court. Mm-hmm. And so there's like 10 people filming. Right away, I call that a douchebag fight. If you got a bunch of people filming, it's a douchebag fight.
Yeah.
And the jiu-jitsu guy handles him. This guy's trying to wail on him, and the jiu-jitsu guy, arm bars him or chokes him out or whatever. So everyone goes, see jiu-jitsu. But I go, well, like, was that self-defense, or was that just, somebody caught an elbow in a basketball game and it escalated because people didn't understand D1 and D2?
Yeah.
Right? So we can't just randomly select things. There's got to be a criteria. And I created these categories, category 1, 2, 3, 4. Category 1, and I don't want to get too detailed into it, but category 1 is looking at all martial arts. Category 2 is looking at all combat sports. Category 3 is reality-based self-defense. And then category 4 is just looking at violent encounters. And every category thinks they prepare their student for category 4, but there's no evidence of that. If you look at that, and I'm not saying I'm not dissing anybody. I'm going go to your Aikido class. I studied all that shit. I love all the guys. I got all the books. I got all the videos.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was the hunters in our world, like the military. So my biggest clients, the military.
Okay.
Cops. These are the people that move towards the danger. On purpose. They're the professionals. If they can't make complex motor skill work, you look at cop fights all over the world, you look at military fights, it's stuff that's captured on camera, you don't see even simple arm bars working. Things get chaotic and violent fast. So I go what's going to happen in a surprise fight? Like if you go to your car and you're on the phone on your car, next thing you know, there's a guy there going to carjack you. Are you dropping to his back and dropping your back and pulling guard? Are you stepping back and doing a spinning hook kick? Are you, if he's got a gun, are you slipping it and firing an uppercut? And it seems like I'm making fun of the other categories. I'm not. The other categories are amazing. It'd be like saying yoga is good for self-defense, right? Yoga will make you maybe more resilient and more in tune with your body and to be more flexible and stuff. And that's not a great metaphor because in the other arts and other categories, you are learning movements that may appear in a self-defense situation.
Right.
But the real thing is this, the violent encounter is almost always started by the bad guy. And so the impact first is on the emotional psychological system, not on you physically. So and here's the thing is if you took most douchebag bad guys, I saw your mouth open there, you had an aha moment, right? So if I took most douchebag muggers and I put them in a ring with a mediocre MMA guy, the MMA guy is going to fucking kill him. The jiu-jitsu guy is going to kill him. The taekwondo is going to kill him. Do you guys see so this has caused a huge conundrum in the martial art world because when they hear me say, be your own bodyguard seminar, safer in a day. In one day you can learn self-defense. They go, hey man, I've been training for 4 years and I still can't defend myself. I still got 2 levels to go to. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
But it's not. It comes back to that CPR first aid metaphor that you can learn those essential skills for what you need to escape a violent encounter. But they're not in that one day course. You're not going to learn how to box, how to grapple, how to kick. So I'm off on 27 tangents.
No, it's great.
But it is my way. It was interesting. I want to circle back to after that talk with the doctor. If the listeners remember, he's in my office. He goes, I'm sick of being short. This guy did this, and I said, hey man, you can meditate all night. You're not going to wake up any taller. This is it. You're done. So what do you need to do? You got to accept your height. And now we got to build a personal defense system around that. And that is obviously a liability if you're against a much taller person, because here's another thing we like, and we try to be provocative. And there's, in the martial arts community, there's an expression that size doesn't matter. And I'm like, at the youngest age, I said, well, no, size does matter. That's why they have weight classes in boxing and MMA. Size, if you're really good and I'm really, if you're really good and I'm really good and you're 50 pounds bigger than me, you're going to beat me.
Yeah.
If we're both really good. So you're a really good driver, I'm a really good driver, and we have a demolition derby contest, and we pick, our cars out of a hat, and I pick mine out, and I get a little smile on my face, and you pick yours out, and you kind of look, and your eyes bug open, and I go, Jay, what kind of car? And you're like, I got a smart car, and I got a Hummer. It doesn't matter how good driver you are anymore. You're done.
Right.
As soon as we hit, you're done. So size does matter, which means, if you're an adrenaline junkie and you want to enter some tournament where you fight in your weight class, but if you win, you go into, the next category, and maybe you're fighting some guy that's 240 and you're 150, so there are competitions like that. But in the street, you're just your size.
Yeah. And
you can't select the weight class of your mugger or your rapist or your abductor or the gang. And so if in your mind you've already got this notion that size matters, which I tell people, and this is what I tell people: size matters, so it can't matter, right? Size matters, so it can't matter. You get that? So size matters. Mm-hmm. So if I tell you, and you're a good sized man, but if some really big guy approached you and said, "Hey, dude, I'm your attacker tonight," you'd look at him and go, "Holy shit, you're big."
Yeah.
If that matters to you, you've already started to lose your focus.
Gotcha.
So Dan Millman, who wrote The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, great book, he said, and I wish I said it, but I love quoting people, which is the respectful thing to do. But it's such a good quote, I wish I'd said it. He said, if you face just one opponent and you doubt yourself, you're outnumbered. Isn't that fucking great?
That's great.
So so here's the thing. If your instructor says size doesn't matter, and then you punch this really big guy and his head turns and he grabs you and picks you upside down and drops you on your head, you suddenly realize in the moment size matters. And now you get this massive fear dump. If you go size doesn't matter, or you're thinking size matters, but what I tell the student, it can't matter to you. It can't. So this is going back to this doctor, and I know this got a little kind of circuitous and weird for a moment, but this is going back to this 5'5" doctor, where I said size can't matter to you. You're fixating on the physical. We need to build your D1, D2 arsenal. And if it is truly a violent encounter, then you've got this moral, ethical, kind of supercharged energy, because it's a choiceless choice.
Yeah.
You've got to go.
Right.
You've got to go. You have no choice now. But what you've done is through proper training, you've cleared your mind of this kind of little negative anchor of, oh, I'm small, I can't let this happen to me. Right? We've got to clear that stuff. And those are the most successful people the most successful people in the world are the people that, if you go, weren't you worried because you came up with a shitty upbringing that no one would accept? No, they're like, or they used it to their advantage. They went, I'm going to prove myself.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's a really close parallel.
Now, is it a challenge for you, or is there a dichotomy where you're talking to the guy who's 5'5", and you want to teach them D1 and D2 and to kind of de-escalate? It seems like that's one mindset, but then you have to have this fucking incredible belief in yourself if the guy's the size of Brock Lesnar that you can handle it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Is there a challenge there? How do you...
That's tricky to get into without showing some of the mechanics of what we do. And this story might help listeners understand this. This guy comes into my school and he says, I travel a ton. I got a 18-year-old daughter who's going away to school, and my wife, I'm worried about them. Do you have a program for women? I said, yeah. He says, can you tell me about it? I said, sure. So I explained, hey, it's all behaviorally based. It's a their size won't matter because it's teaching you how to move if you have to move. So we've got the detect and avoid. We've got the verbal de-escalation. And what happens when you feign fear and compliance in a fight is the predator gets closer. So if you started a fight with me and I stood up and I said, Jay, don't do it, and I postured, you would, like magnets of the same polarity, you'd back off for a second and measure me up, and you'd start to strategize on, am I going to double leg? Am I going to come in with a Superman punch overhand? Am I going to pick up a weapon? So we don't teach any of that. We teach feigning fear and feigning compliance because the psychology of real violent encounters, not douchebag fights, real violent encounters, is one of control, and control is directly connected to power tripping and a psychological flaw in the attacker. And so, have you ever seen or been in a situation where you were really afraid? And it didn't get physical, but you really were submissive in your behavior or saw that. And what you saw with the gang or the bad guy was he got nose to nose, and he was like nose to nose. And he was like, that's right, motherfucker.
Right.
Don't fucking come here again or I'll fuck you up, apologize. But he's like nose to nose, where if you actually knew what to do right there, you could headbutt him, bite his nose, punch him in the throat, fucking grab his nuts, like, because he was like so close because he was power tripping. So at that moment, we teach this really interesting behavioral blend, which you develop competence and confidence for. And there's a big difference between competence and confidence. You develop competence for in the training. Because it's behaviorally based, right? So it's not sparring based where we're trying to maintain distance and space. So at that moment...
So do you feign fear to bring the guy in closer so you can do something that's going to be more advantageous for you?
Yeah, you need the...
Because if in the example you gave, if I start doing what you're doing, then we're too far distance. Is that what you're saying?
So the way to morally and ethically diffuse something is to be nice. And remember... the original Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze's line, be nice until it's time to not be nice.
Yeah.
That's a cool line.
Yeah.
But it's not cool if you don't know what to do.
Right.
Right. So there is a requirement for training. But here's the thing is, we have a cool maxim. Those who talk can usually be persuaded to walk. Those who talk can usually be persuaded to walk. So, and again, like I've done 30 years of research on this, so this might sound like bullshit and psychobabble and stuff, but I've been teaching for 37 years, and we know this stuff works. So, if somebody is punching you, you shouldn't be saying, if you punch me, I'm going to defend myself. It's too late. The punching has already started. The guy has gotten physical. But somebody who goes, hey, what are you looking at, motherfucker? If you go, hey, man, well, take it easy. Like, I thought I knew you from school, but you're like the wrong guy. And he walks up to you, goes, no, yes, you're fucking staring me up and down, man. What are you fucking, and he's like in your face. And if you shove him and go, get out of my face, man, which is like the guy testosterone response, what you've done is you've just jacked up the adrenaline. So nobody can sustain an adrenaline dump by themselves. And so there's this theory where this guy's angry and he's looking for a fight, but is he ready to fight, Jay, if he hasn't started hitting you? Is he ready to fight? If he hasn't started hitting you? And the answer is no. So we do this. We have a bunch, and I can't do the whole seminar on this podcast, and not because I don't want to share it, because some of it is like a visceral drills where you do them and you go, holy shit.
Yeah.
And they're super cool. They create like these like live epiphanies in the students where they're like, oh my God, that worked. Like I've had students go, hey, will this work against a big person in our seminars? And I go, and I'll look at people and I'll go, like, what do you care if I tell you yes? The fact that you asked me means you don't believe it'll work. So if I tell you, yes, it will, but you don't do the drill, in the back of your mind, you have that negative anchor. This won't work against a big guy.
Right.
If I tell you, no, it won't work, you're like, what? Like, what do you mean it won't work? Well, right? So when someone goes, will this work against a big guy? I go, I always, and I've, you know, how many times I've used this in 30 years? I go, hey, will this work against a big guy? I go, well, if I tell you yes, you won't believe me. If I tell you no, you'll go, well, why are we practicing it? So what do you need to do? And they look at me and they get like bug-eyed. This is, again, we come back to the fear.
Yeah.
You need to face fear so you understand this. Now go control it and get to know fear. That's the fuck fear acronym, right? Let's do the drill. We'll scale it. We'll build it. PVC, bar, plates, right? And you build it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then you at some point you're doing in very few reps, right? You know, because we're teaching people, like in these courses, we're teaching people to use physiology and physics. We're not teaching people techniques. Nothing to remember, right? It's like it's shit you already do.
Right.
So we're teaching people to explode out of this whole, you know, startle flinch, which is, you know, this cord extremity explosion, which is the strongest thing any human can do. It's like the split jerk of self-defense. It's pretty cool.
So on the topic of fear in general, in everyday life, do you think it's a good practice to just do things you fear across the board? Like, I'm scared of sharks. Okay, go jump in the ocean and go swim.
No, I'm scared of sharks too. So listen, yes and no.
Maybe public speaking.
Well,
maybe not something that's you're going to be in physical harm.
Well, listen, here's the thing. And it's interesting, right? So I've met people who go, I make it a practice to do things that I'm scared. You've seen memes like that. Do one thing you're afraid of.
Yeah.
And I go like, yes, if it's congruent with your evolution.
Okay.
So there's no reason for me to not be afraid of a shark.
Right.
Now, do you have any friends that are professional surfers?
I do not. Some good, but not professional.
Right. But you have friends that surf all the time, right? So their surfing will get better if they're less afraid of what's under the water.
Right.
Right. Because they can focus on the wave and the surfing.
Totally.
I tried surfing. I got up a few times, but I was always like, I'm going to stay close to these people and hope that if there's a shark here, they hit somebody else. Like, you know, like,
of course,
you know, and then there's, you know, I'll look at someone and go, who's a good surfer. I go, you ever think about sharks? And I go, yeah, you know, but the likelihood, you know, you got a better chance of getting struck by lightning, I think, or walking down the street's more dangerous. And they give something like that. And I nod and I go, yeah, okay, well, I'm going to go walk down the street now because there are no land sharks. Right. So I look at it as I've got a lot of friends in special operations, special forces because of military stuff. And these aren't the numbers, but half of them like skydiving and half of them don't. But all of them need to maintain their certification or that qualification, so they can be on in that unit or in that team. So the guys that like skydive, if they go, hey, next month, guys, requalification for skydive at the Halo, blah, 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 you know, like half of them go, yeah, and half of them are going, oh, okay, because they know how to manage their fear and they do it.
So you think it's a good idea to face fear if it helps your career development, your personal development?
If it's necessary, it's not just a good idea. If it helps, it's necessary.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a public speaker and you're afraid to public speak, that's going to hinder the progress of your career.
Yeah.
So I did, so my son was like 3 or 4. So he's 25. So 23 years ago, I jumped out of an airplane twice. Now I'm afraid of heights. I went skydiving as a fear management exercise. And it was crazy. I couldn't believe that, that I did it. But, and so I've had people, hey, you want to go skydiving? I go, done it. I've already done it. Bucket list. Thank you. Yeah. Come on, man. Are you afraid? I know I can do it again, but it doesn't interest me. It's not like I'm going, it's like, it's Saturday. What do I want to do? Yeah. Should I golf? No. Should I relax with the kids and maybe swim at the beach where there's no sharks? Yeah, that sounds good. Should I skydive? No, that's never on my list.
Right.
And I've done it. And here's the thing is, let's say one day I want to, I'll go. Because I understand how to manage fear. And that's the message. So if something's holding you back, so I've talked to people like, so we do all sorts of consulting. And so people like you heard about me as the guy, he's the guy that teaches fighting. Well, we actually teach personal defense, right? And we do other stuff too. And so we've got, several divisions in my company. But teaching people how to manage fear is about living life and self-actualizing, and like that to me is huge. That's where I want to focus on, in the future, because I've got an amazing team that helps with our training, and it's been like 10 years. Maybe 12 years that I've actually been on the road teaching. Like there was a time when I was on the road, we were talking earlier, one year when I was figuring out the industries, I was on the road one year, 262 days, I think.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It was like a deployment. I mean, it was insane,
So you've grown this huge company now. Let's shift gears a little and talk about some of the lessons you've learned along the way and maybe tips you can share with people who are young entrepreneurs are getting started in business.
Yeah, trust your intuition. Trust your gut. We call this the 3 I's, and it's actually part of our self-defense. So here's the neat thing is every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale had a bad feeling before the attack, but they didn't do anything about it. They kept those blinders on. And I'll say it again. Every victim of violence who lived to tell the tale had a bad feeling. So, we have this thing we say, #choose safety, right? Just because it's the hashtag world. #choose safety. There's no downside to choosing safety. If you choose safety, you're safe. If you ignore a pre-contact cue and it turns out to be something dangerous, you're fucked to some degree, And so, I wouldn't say I have a huge business, but I've got we're one of the most trusted training companies in the world. And we work with, governments of different countries where we do things, and I can't mention who we train with and stuff like that. So I'm really super flattered and honored to train with these organizations. And we do everything down to women's shelters and working with kids and volunteer shit and, companies and all that. So we have like this really widespread demographic. As far as,
Talk specifically like a little bit more about growing that.
Yeah.
The pains and the stress of managing all that.
So it's interesting. I got actually Instagram message from this coach. His business is taken off in the UK, where I had mentioned to him, which is why I remember the number, because he had asked me, a question about like logistics as you grow. So I remember, Kelly Starrett and Carl Powley and people like asking me when they were in my classes, like 10 years ago, I want to do what you do. How do you do this? What do you do? And like mentoring people who are just blowing up and, in their own world, taking over their world. And lots of people, I get emails from people who go, I want to do what you do. And I go, I wrote something, the blog Medium? Okay. So I write on Medium from time to time. And people, we should link this in something. But there was a blog I wrote where I ended with a picture. It was a selfie, and the message was, you're not your best selfie. Because nobody takes one selfie, right? And so you're lying to the public, right? And it's a cool thing. And so, like, I've written some deep shit on people, and I wrote this on Medium, so I can just send the link, because I get triggered. I've always wanted to use that word. No, I don't. I get triggered. I'm going to use it again just to make fun. When somebody goes, nice life. on something, like I post something cool, like a picture somewhere, oh, nice life, or you got it made. And I go, do you know how hard I fucking worked to get here? You know, like Andy Frisella is like posting on, like, I don't know if you know Andy.
The name's ringing a bell.
He posts on that First Forum.
Supplements or something?
Yeah. But I mean, he's built a massive empire. He's one of those guys that go like, or Gary Vaynerchuk, you know, stop complaining. No one gives a shit. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize, like, people see the exotic side of success as an entrepreneur. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize, you know, in 2010, I had a $12 million company. I had 12 employees. I was making, 6-figure, you know, growing, doing great. Had an inside, event happen where I lost control of my company. Like, literally went from running this company on Friday to making 0 on Monday.
Holy shit.
Yeah. You know, really tested me. I talk about it when I do business seminars because it's interesting. And I wanted to say something else when you said, hey, you don't really teach like fighting. And again, we call it, you know, personal defense, just to start that reframe for people. Because if you want to learn how to fight, go to a boxing gym, go to a Thai boxing gym, go to MMA. Yeah. If you want to learn martial arts, these are the categories. Yeah. Right? Is imagine learning how to defend yourself, but at the same time acquiring these life management skills that are going to make you a better husband or better dad, better human.
That's what's so cool about it. Yeah.
Because, and this is straight out of my talk and my seminar, that the ability to protect yourself or a loved one is arguably the most important skill you could possess. That you would trade all of your material possessions to live another day, or for somebody you care about to live another day. So if I said, hey, you know, Jay, you really got it made. Like, you got all this shit here. You know, you got these cars, you got these watches, you got a guitar collection, you got a stamp collection. But guess what? You know nothing about situational awareness and verbal skills. So here's what's going to happen tomorrow, because you don't know any of this. But that's okay. You get to keep all this stuff, but this is what's happening to the most important person in your life. Or you get to avoid all that stuff, but you lose all this material possession. If you knew that to be true, you'd go, take all my shit.
Totally.
Because unless you stole it, you know you can earn it back.
Yeah.
And that's the reframe I want people to do. That, you know, and this isn't like a 20-year investment. But anyways, coming back to the business stuff, I realized, and this is the thing when I do like corporate talks, there's a really neat little reframe here. Here I am as one of the busiest, I don't want to use words where people go, oh, he's a conceited asshole, but I'm an influential combatives defensive tactics instructor, again, all over the world for decades. Everything that I teach people for self-defense, all those pre-contact cues, happened to me in business. And I chose to ignore them because I didn't want to believe that was happening. Yeah. So if I whiteboarded the events leading up to this hostile takeover of my company, it'd be like if I was saying like, hey, you went down the street and then this guy started following you and then he said this, and see, you were, you know, moving to a secondary crime scene and that's why you got attacked here. Now that we whiteboarded it, you go, oh my God, how could I be so blind? And I go, well, you didn't. You picked up all these pre-contact cues, but cognitive dissonance made you shut it down. Like, that's what I do, like in the self-defense realm. If I did that for the 6 months before this event, there were all these pre-contact cues that I chose to ignore. I had a 21,000-foot facility. My partner ran a $1 billion defense logistics firm. And there were a bunch of things in what happened when Obama got in the White House and the sequestration in the military and certain things. We had done a multi-million-dollar deal for some gear I designed, and all of that stopped. So I saw all these things, and then I saw behaviors change, and I didn't guard myself against it. And it was it's easy. Like you know, I've had obviously very deep talks with very successful business people, and they go, listen, you know, you're being too hard on yourself. It's not as overt as you said, and these guys were These guys are very experienced. You don't get to run a company of that size like my co-partners without knowing all these little ins and outs.
Yeah.
But I didn't choose safety. I didn't walk up to them and go, "Hey, just on the off chance I'm like reading these right, are you guys planning on fucking me?" Because you can read body language, right? If someone's eyes shoot to the left and goes, and I look at it and I go, anyways, that's a fascinating talk that I do for young entrepreneurs and business people this is like the tactical trinity, where I go, not only will you learn personal defense, but you'll learn how to apply that same formula to, and it's really simple. It's what we call the 3 I's: instincts and intuition equals intelligence. Instincts and intuition. So if your instincts and intuition tell you something, the intelligent thing to do is address that.
Right.
So, if you had, for example, somebody in your company that you thought was stealing from you, right? You got a bad feeling. You go up to him and you go, "Hey, man, this is an awkward conversation, but like, are you doing anything with the books or the cash that comes in?" You'll know. Do you ever see like somebody who commits a horrific crime on TV and they're interviewing, and you go right away, you go, "They did it."
Yeah.
Like, right away, like they're not making eye contact, their body language is off, there's something wrong in their speech. There's a lot of tells. So if I came up to you and I said, "Hey, Jay, my wallet was out there and I'm missing $20. If you stole it, your reaction will be very specific. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't, your reaction would be very specific. And if you didn't, you'd go, "Man, get the fuck out of my house," whatever. Like, how dare you, and we would fight and argue in the hallway. But maybe if we got to the bottom of it and I go, "Look, I'm paranoid. I lost a $12 million company and now my 20 is missing." And then I find it in my pocket. We would get closer and it would be a story we laughed at. And you would end up saying to me, like, I never met somebody that was so transparent and so brutally honest. There's a quote that I throw around that the wonderful thing about bluntness is it gauges the strong and intimidates the weak. The wonderful thing about bluntness, and you got to be careful with that because people are sensitive these days. We have an entitled generation, but I'm often one of my zany rants and tangents. But listen, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Everyone wants to work for themselves. And I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk's.
Which I don't know if you share this opinion, but I don't always think that's right. I don't think everybody should.
Right, and that's why I was gonna quote Gary, who said, "Listen, you could want to be like a professional basketball player. That doesn't mean you can." Yeah. Right. It means maybe you're just good at you're good at pickup games, but you're not LeBron. You're not gonna. So this is the same thing. Is like I've had a bunch of people who I mentored break away and temporarily try to screw me and do their own thing. And they suck because that wasn't their thing. They thought it was, but it wasn't. And so, some people can't be part of a team. Mm-hmm. And some people can. And having self-awareness, and that's a huge thing I'm really big on, that having self-awareness will help guide you. But if this comes back to, you can't really dial in self-awareness if you don't understand the psychology of fear. If you're afraid to look at yourself, how are you going to develop? How are you going to cultivate self-awareness?
Yeah, it's a great point. Do you have any tips to share on leadership and leading a team? Because you have how many people work for you are on your team?
We have like 20 on our mobile training team, and then we got.
I'm sure throughout the years,
3
it's probably
people.
Been a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean,
last 37 years.
It oscillates. It's gotten bigger lately.
Yeah.
So I'd say, listen, I'm hard to work for because I expect the best. I'm hardest on myself, so I'm hard on other people. I'd say that I've gotten better at being more compassionate and less unrealistic with my expectations.
Okay.
And, that's a big one, that if you really want to grow a team, recognize if they're legitimately there, nobody's making mistakes as a conspiracy to fuck you up.
Right.
So you think about think about how many times you're laughing. So I know you do this too, because we're type A personalities. Like, why would they put the weights back like this? Right? Yeah. Like they did it on purpose. If they knew you hated the weights and they were going to get in shit for replacing them like that, nobody's going, Jay hates when we do this. Oh, Tony hates when we answer emails like this. Nobody's doing that on purpose. And a lot of times it comes back to either they're the wrong person or you didn't train them properly.
Yep.
And so it's taken me a long time to learn that, but I'm getting better. So bear with me, team, if you're listening to this. And I was hard on other people, but there's like, that brings out the worst. That was a Freudian slip. That brings out the best in the people that have the best to come out. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Like I don't blow smoke up people's ass. I go, hey, listen, we got to talk. And I've told people. So everyone wants to be so we got a team where everyone wants to be the front man in the seminar, the lead, the flow master. And there are some guys that they're amazing assistant instructors. They really understand the system, but there's something in their personality that I just go, I can't give you the mic to be the lead singer. And I use the band metaphor. You're in the band, dude. And I've used this a lot. And you know what? There are people who, and again, this is fear management, where their ego impacts what would have been a great relationship and a great ride. Where I've said to people, hey, this is the band and we love you, but you're the roadie and we love you. And you're going to hang out with us and you're going to party with us and we'll introduce you on stage and everyone will know you. And in my case, like I had guys like that where they were like really part of the family, but that they just, you could see that resentment, like I should be up there. And I'm an elitist. Like I'm not going to put listen, first of all, some of the people we train keep our world safe, like legitimately. And then let's flip that. If I was teaching you and your wife self-defense, you're now the hostage rescue team for you and your wife.
Yeah.
Like, do you want my F player? Or you want my tier 1 guys?
Right.
Right. I want to give you my tier 1 guys. Right. So I have people that go, why can't I go teach Jay? And I go, look, Jay's a VIP and so has 10 years experience. And so I try to, and it's hard. I go, man, like you're the bass player in this show. So we have like some events that are so big where I'll have 12 trainers, but I'll go, this guy's the flow master. And you'll see some people go, man, I've been around longer than so-and-so. And I go, and I want to pull them aside and go, you're in the fear loop and you're lacking self-awareness. Like it's interesting because the system that they're studying and they're supposed to teach, they don't understand enough to break the shackles that would make them more free.
Yeah.
That's fucking deep.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I'll look at them and I'll go, you see this, you're in the fear loop because you're not looking at your fear. So you're not the self-awareness. That's what's holding you back. This is called cycle of behavior. You're supposed to be an instructor in this, right? So, and that's why we come back to something I said, Ray, in the beginning, technician, trainer, coach. The technician, trainer, coach. So a technician knows all the mechanics and the moves and looks like a coach. And the trainer understands the rep scheme, how to program. But the coach can look at you and go, Jay, what's going on? And he can get in your head. He understands the mindset piece.
Yeah. Now, are you? So we talk about self-awareness. Are you aware of how great you are in conversation and just like the energy and to be around you? Like you put people at ease. The first time we met, we hung out for 5 minutes, and I said, "Man, it's like you would think, okay, here's a tough guy, here's a smart guy, here's a successful guy. Could be intimidating to be around you, but it's like not at all." Are you aware of how good you are at that, and do you kind of practice that? And
I don't. I think if you're practicing being cool, you're a dick.
You know what I mean? Just like making people at ease and making them feel comfortable.
You know, there's people that fucking hate me, man.
Yeah.
And like I'll come home and my daughter's got some friends over at the house, and then they leave and they go, all my friends are scared of you. They think you want to kill them. I go so no, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. On the flip side, what's something that you know in your head, because you are self-aware, Tony, you got to get better at this. This is a weakness. You're struggling with this. There's something coming to mind that you'd like to improve?
Yeah, the thing I alluded to is being a leader.
Okay.
I need to figure this. Here's the weird thing is I meet a lot of people because of, so I was on the phone with one of our affiliates. So we have another affiliate program where we train trainers and martial artists and self-defense practitioners how to incorporate our spear system and our psychology. And it'll make their community safer, right? And so I was on the phone with, and he'll probably listen to this, so I'm not going to mention his name. And at the end of the call, he says, I just want to tell you that I'm kind of freaking out that I was talking to you, Coach. And like I was telling people yesterday, I have a meeting with Coach Blauer tomorrow. I'm so nervous. And I said, dude, thank you for saying that. That doesn't make me uncomfortable, because I've had intimate conversations and spent time with Schwarzenegger, with Stallone, with Sugar Ray Leonard, with Sugar Ray Robinson, who are heroes of mine. When I first met Greg Glassman, we become founder of CrossFit. I think one of the smartest guys in the world. I'm there. In conversations in my head, I'm going, please don't ask me a question. Please don't ask me a question. Because I've, Gavin DeBecker, Gift of Fear, where I'm like, hello, Mr. DeBecker. I'm going, I'm a fear management specialist expert. Yeah. And so the self-awareness, so I'll do things like when I was with Stallone, we were talking about, and we're alone in his trailer during Rocky V. Was that the one with Tommy Morrison?
Yes,
I think so. So, I was helping train Tommy Morrison on the set, keep him in shape, because I was friends with the owner of Ringside at the time, John Brown, and we were developing some equipment together. And so he asked me, hey, would you work with Tommy Morrison? Make sure, just do pad work with him and make sure that, he's when he gets off the movie, he can still go. So Stallone met me as a fighter, and he loved boxing and everything like that. So we hung out, right? And so I'm in the trailer showing Stallone some of the way I teach, some footwork drills and stuff like this. And so here I am shadow boxing in Stallone's trailer with Sylvester Stallone. And I stop him and I go, okay, I got to say something to you. And he goes, yeah. I go, so, we're shadow boxing, right? And you're digging this shit? He goes, yeah. And we talked about the Hilton brothers, who I used to spar with up in Montreal, and my time with Sugar Ray Robinson and my time with Sugar Ray Leonard. And he goes, yeah. I go, but I need you to understand that part of me is going, I'm talking to Sylvester Stallone. Right. And I did it just like that. And he fucking starts laughing and punches me in the shoulder and goes, it's weird, because it was my self-awareness even back then that said, I'll be cooler if I let him know how in awe I am of him, because that'll let me also just talk about boxing without overthinking this. Yeah. The coolest thing, I tell you the Stallone story. So we got a little closer. So one of the days he says to me, we're in Philly. He says, hey, we're going to a hockey game. You want to come? So I'm like, yeah, shit, yeah. So we're in a limousine. Me, his bodyguard, Jennifer, who they weren't married at the time. And we're driving there. We go there and they go underground, the Spectrum. And then, of course, at some point, the camera goes on Stallone and people freak out. And then they escort us out after the game. And we're driving out the limo, but now everyone knows. So they're out by the garage, and there's hundreds of people, and there's girls lifting their shirts, boobs against the fucking windows, and still out, like Rocky. And he's sitting there, and the window's down, just a crack, because he's like waving and trying to talk to the fans. And he goes, unreal. I cannot believe, that this is still going on everywhere I go. And I look at him and I said, dude, if the world was about to go up in flames and they were going to fire like rocket ships into space with different memorabilia for things, and one of them was like action movies, your shit would be in there.
Yeah.
I mean, Rocky, Rambo,
right.
A bunch of that shit, like you'd be up in there. You've created these iconic characters. When I was 16 years old, Sly, when I watched Rocky a bunch of times, and I got goosebumps right now thinking about it. And he looks at me, and he looks out the window, and people are screaming. He looks out the window, and he looks up into the sky, into the stars, because I just gave this rocket ship analogy. And he says, under his breath, but loud enough for everyone in the car, I was just trying to eke out a living. And this comes back to this like hustle entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Stallone wanted to be in the movies. You know the story with Rocky, right? No, you can't buy it from me. I want a star.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to believe, when I was 14, I knew I was going to teach self-defense, manage fear, man. Everything in life is about understanding fear, and understanding fear will develop self-awareness, and self-awareness. If I wasn't self-aware, I vary on a regular basis. I'll call up somebody or email somebody or say to, my wife, who's my business partner, yeah, man, I overreacted to that. I got to call that person or whatever, just in terms of that, because I want everything to be perfect. Not because we don't make widgets, right? I'm sharing with people ideas that may influence the outcome of a violent encounter.
Yeah.
And I get, like, when I've had instructors modify our lesson plan because they didn't manage their time right. And I'm like on the phone, like going, hey, listen, fuck. You need to fucking stay late tomorrow and fix that. Like, these are cops going towards the danger. I don't care you didn't manage, like this lesson's for them, not for you.
Yeah. What
we do is for you, not for us.
Yeah.
The lesson exists for the students. One of our mottos in our Train the Trainer course is, don't show your students what you can do, show your students what they can do.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned cops a few times, and I've often heard the argument that if cops were properly trained, we would see less of the police brutality, police violence, and whatnot. Now, my perspective on that has shifted over the course of this conversation. Is it, if they were trained how to de-escalate, that would be better than them being trained for the actual tactics of fighting?
The answer here, and I hope a bunch of cops listen to this, if bad guys stop being bad guys, there'd be less fucking violence.
Yeah.
Listen, there are some cops that shouldn't be cops.
Yeah.
Just like there are some dads that shouldn't be dads, and moms that shouldn't be moms. To get super, super deep, my son came from a previous relationship, and from day one, I got custody of him, which is very rare. And I had custody of him, and I had a picture of him and I when he was just like a year old, and I had it up, in my office so I could look at it all the time. On the back of it, I had two maxims. One of them was, nothing affects a child's life more than a parent's unlived life. Self-awareness, fear management. Yeah. Nothing affects a child's life more than a parent's unlived life. And the other one...
Is that a quote from somebody or from you?
Yeah, some I don't remember where, some therapist back in, I read it somewhere.
Great quote, though.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And the other one was that there's no such thing as illegitimate children, only illegitimate parents.
Another great one.
Yeah. And so specifically, are cops trained to the degree that they should be? Absolutely not. Is some training archaic? Absolutely. It comes back to the categories. Like one of the categories, like, you see real violent encounters, but you don't see category 1, category 2, category 3 repeatedly manifesting itself to save the day. You see just like people fighting like when they were in high school. Yeah. Right. And so cops, good guys and bad guys. So it's not about, a new fancy word. Oh, we need to teach de-escalation. Listen, it's and it's the same thing what I teach. That's why I teach the 3 Ds, right? You can do D1 right. You can do D2 right. It's the bad guy decides if it's going to fight. Yeah. If there's going to be a fight. Yeah. So, I'll send you a list of just some feedback on cops and military who've taken our course, where the feedback is, why isn't this taught to everybody? Because what we're teaching is a behaviorally based system that directly impacts your tactical presence and your psychology, meaning like your aura when you're there. Why? Because you understand, I need to get close to this guy. I'm probably going to have to arrest him. But now I know what to do if he moves first. I've got a startle flinch conversion program. And that changes everything. Most time for water. Most police defensive tactics system are taught like category 1, like martial arts. Step to the left, get to 2 o'clock, do this. And the fights are too fluid and dynamic. And that's why you'll see stuff that looks like, listen, I'm not going to stay on your show that there's never police brutality or whatever, but people don't understand what's going on. And the most of the news media would rather have a riot than show the full film. They didn't show, all of the Rodney King video. They don't show all of the facts and all of the videos. You see the last thing where like the cop punches somebody, but they don't show the bad guy headbutting the cop. Yeah. And again, coming clean, there are people who have no business, being cops. But I've been teaching cops since 1993, and most of them are frickin' serious. And they've got a shitty job and don't get enough respect, and they go into like look what's happening in Houston, or when there were the Dallas shootings, cops running to save people while there's a sniper. Like most of them are really trying to make the world a safer place. Yeah. The money isn't going to the training, and it never has. And we're doing we run things in areas that are more economically deprived. We do a battle buddy program where it's like a 2-for-1. So we cut the price in half for cops who want to come to our training. Our police training, by the way, is like a 4-day intensive course. It's not the 1 day because there's a lot more to it.
Sure. Do you think kids should be not forced, that would obviously not be the right word, but do you think exposing young children to simulated, controlled violence, martial arts, wrestling, and things like that is probably a good thing long term and would lead to less aggression, less school shootings, less whatever, because they get it out? And like the participation trophy culture and all that. There has to be some kind of competition and something that goes back to tribalism where young men, kids, teenagers prove themselves physically against each other. Right? When you remove that totally, it kind of goes against human nature.
I just did a post. Regarding the Conor McGregor Mayweather fight, and it started off in the first paragraph that said, "If you've never been punched in the face before, your comments don't count." Right? Yeah. Yeah. There is something. There are people who think I'm like all about psychobabble and theory and all of that, but I've been knocked out. I've been in fights. Right. I've had my nose broken. I've broken both hands. I've broken my ribs. There was a period in the 80s when I was slurring my speech because I was sparring 30 times a week. Wow. Because I would do my MO was private lessons. you know, and I had 30, 40 private lessons before I'd open a school, and I'd spar every single one of my students.
That's crazy.
You know, so like no pro boxer spars 30 times a week.
Yeah.
You know, and it was some point when I started slurring my speech, I was like, whoa, what's going on? I mean, I could really feel, and so, coming back to your question, it's a fascinating question. It's got to be, it's really about the guardian. It's really about the custodian. You know, it comes back to, you remember, again, dating myself, the original Karate Kid movie.
Yeah.
You know, are you the Cobra Kai? You know, kill him, break his leg. Like, are you the dick instructor teaching people that violence is
right.
the answer? And, you know, and sometimes, like, you know, my buddy Tim Larkin says, you know, like sometimes, you know, violence is the only answer. I'm misquoting him, but sometimes violence is the only answer. So you need to get comfortable with looking at it. And when you've threat discriminated, when you've assessed, oh shit, this is happening, you need to make some moves.
Yeah. And
the moves might be to disengage or to engage. Those skills can be learned pretty quickly for most people.
Yeah.
You know, they're different. So I would love to see, you know, and when I talk about my categories, you know, people think I'm dissing martial arts. I've been a martial artist all my life. You know, I've got bags in my gym. I punch, I kick when I can, based on my schedule. I do jiu-jitsu. Like, I study this stuff, but I don't confuse. You know, I have when I do interviews from home, I bring this out in a seminar I was doing in northern England years ago. There was remnants of a wall, like, that was considered the oldest wall from Spartan times. You know, big plaque on there about some battle, and there were a lot of antique stores around there because it's like, this is like the beginning of war.
Yeah.
And I went into a store and I bought a spearhead, symbolic of spear, and it's all like rusty and green and antique-y, and my wife teases me, goes, "Hey, you bought an old fence, you know, like the tip of a fence, you know, like a wrought iron fence." And I'm like, "Shut up! It's a spear. Yeah. It's an ancient spear." She goes, "It's a fence, you know," and so, but I'll look at it sometimes, and I don't know if did you ever see the old the original Patton movie with George C. Scott?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the scene where he's there, where he goes to Thermopylae, you know, where the Spartans fought, and he goes, this is where the Spartans came from, and you know, their enemy was, you know, hiding over here, and they did that, and he's describing the fight, and then after describing it in the George C. Scott fashion, he turns to, I think, Carl Malden, and he goes, "I was here," you know, and you're like that creepy feeling, like of. And it's almost like that moment where, like, when I was 14, I knew what I was going to do. Where sometimes you just know, right? And I don't want to creep any of your listeners out, but I'll look at that spear and I think about, did this guy die on the battlefield? Was this spear, did he die of old age? How many people did he kill? Like, I'll look at it from, and I'm not into, you know, crystals and other stuff, and I'm not into that spirituality stuff, but you know, I'll look at that because it's significant history. I go, like, this is like one of the oldest spearheads in the world, and I spent a lot of money on it, and somebody killed people with it, and this guy might have been killed on battle. And what does it mean to be a warrior? What does it mean to be a protector of your beliefs or your society or your... And when I'm doing my podcasts at home, I'll hold it up and let people show it. And it's pretty impressive looking. So pretend I'm holding it here. And I'll go, "You see this? You see this, Jay?" And I go, "Listen, if my dogs started barking," and I've got protection dogs at home, I know the difference between, you know, the milkman's at the door and someone they don't like. Yeah. The bark is different. I'm not going to grab my spear. I'm going to grab my fucking Glock. Right. And so the long story gets to this is, I understand the difference between what is appropriate in a contemporary fight and what is ancient and might be able to be used. Like it, you know, if my gun jammed and I'm on the ground and my spear's there, I'm going to grab it and go, thank God that was there. I just jammed it into the guy. But it's not my go-to first, and that's kind of like a refresh on the category concept. Is like, what do you have for category 4 that the bad guy starts?
Yeah,
and so if we come back to, you know, your question, which was kind of deep, of kids learning stuff like that. Yeah, you know, kids should do jiu-jitsu, kids should wrestle, kids should box. But a lot of it is about who's the guardian custodian of the message and the method.
It's so important. Yeah. Such a fascinating discussion. Just like last time we were together, I feel like I could talk to you all day. We'll definitely have to do a part 2, part 3. Tell people if they want to take one of your courses, if they want to read more about, watch the videos, where can they find all your stuff?
Probably the easiest place is blauerspear.com, BLAUER, spear, SPEAR.com. There's a ton of stuff on, like if you Google Tony Blauer, you'll see a lot of our basic drills, the finger splayed outside 90, all the like spear drills. And listen, I've had people, I did a podcast with Andy Petranek, and he calls me like 3 weeks later. He says, hey, your show's going to launch. I just want to let you know that our audio guy who just cleaned up the audio tape and everything, he was like, you know, sitting there listening and compressing and waiting. He goes out after and he's on his way to go meet his mom for dinner, and something happens, and he used some of the stuff he learned from listening to you to circumvent the danger. And he like called me like ecstatic, like, holy shit. Like, so, you know, cool. And so the message here is like, I'm not trying to sell you to come to my class.
Yeah.
That if you just remember, all victims of violence who live to tell the tale said they had a bad feeling before their attack, that if you got a bad feeling before about anything, about a relationship, about a business partner, about a deal, more importantly, if somebody's following you or something about the house or something about the parking lot, turn around and address it. Metaphorically, turn around, don't move towards the danger, always move away from the danger, choose safety. The downside of choosing safety is you are late, but you're safe.
Yeah.
The reverse, where you ignore it and you do cognitive dissonance, like most victims of violence, like I did with my business thing, where I went, no, there's no way that's happening, and I shut it down, is you frickin' step into the shit. So, but I would love to teach all of you listening. We do our Be Your Own Bodyguard seminars all over the world. We do corporate seminars. Just email us. There's all sorts of shit all over my website. Just, you know, if there's something we can do for you, email me. I'm very active online, on Instagram, on Facebook, much to the chagrin of social media companies who hit me up and go, you're the CEO, you shouldn't be doing your stuff. I do all my stuff. It's me. I answer the questions. So, you know, when Jay posts this, if you listen to it and you've got specific questions, you know, if I can, I'll jump on there and answer them. So
that's awesome. Tony, thank you so much.
Jay, thank you. This
was great. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.